Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. So it was about a year ago that I posted the video of the build of my son JR's crib. And since then, we've had a second son. My son Max was born about 2 months ago, and he is gonna need a crib pretty soon. So our plan is to move JR into a bed, a twin-size bed, and then my son Max will get the crib. So I'm gonna get started on making JR's bed. And I pulled out some lumber that I also did a video on milling as well. This is the walnut that I cut the first time I took out my log trailer. If you haven't seen either the crib video or the picking up and slabbing a walnut log video, I'll leave links to both those videos up in the cards and down in the description. So first, let's go pull out this lumber, and then we'll head back in here into the shop and we'll talk a little bit about the design that I have planned for this bed. So here's my indoor drying area, and the slabs I'm going to use for the bed, at least for the headboard and the footboard, are down here, and the rails. This walnut down here, which I think I brought in here maybe 6 months or so ago. It's been dry for a long time. I actually haven't been swapping out the stack very often. I've been so busy I haven't been drying much lumber recently. So this stack area here is kind of tucked away in the corner of my basement, and in this area here that I have allotted for this, you can do about 1,000 board feet at a time and still have room for some weight on top. So the weight I use to hold the stack down flat to the ground is all the stuff that I already dried and doesn't need any stickers between them. So all the stuff from this point up, it's already dry. This is just lumber I have for, whatever. So today I want to start pulling all the stuff out of here. I actually want to empty this entire stack out because I want to bring in a bunch of new stuff I've been cutting on the sawmill. And all this stuff's been here for so long, it's already dry. So this stuff can go out in the shed, and I can move it out there and use this space to actually dry stuff again. So the biggest advantage of drying indoors like this is I can get the moisture content down to the equilibrium moisture content of indoor furniture, which in my case here is about 8%. I can get the lumber sitting in the basement here down to 8% really easily and relatively quickly compared to just air drying outdoors. So I'm gonna start pulling the stuff out of here, and I'm gonna put it all out on the patio with the stuff that's wet that needs to come in. There's a lot of lumber here, so it'll probably take me a good amount of time. So it's interesting going through this stuff and remembering all the cool boards that I have. There's some really interesting stuff in here. All right. So from that tree there were 2 logs. There was a small log with 3 crotches and then the main trunk. And this is a piece of something else. Butternut, looks like. Yeah, so these 2 here are butternut. First cut off the main trunk. It's gonna be mostly sapwood. Nothing crazy there. And this is the first cut off of the multi-crotch thing. So this is probably going to be too short to use for rails on the bed, and I want to use the wider boards for the head and footboard since you'll be seeing those. So I think this is going to be set aside for a future project. I forgot how many logs I had with that tree. I had some in the upper canopy too. That's what this is. Also probably going to be too narrow for this project, but come in handy for something, I guess. Some more of those upper canopy pieces. I might be able to use this for one of the rails, about 5.5 inches through there. So this one might work for one of the rails, so I might set that aside for now. This is the other half of that board. Looks like it might get a little too narrow, so that might not work. This is more of that triple crotch stuff. These are going to be too short for this project. Now we're getting to the headboard stuff. This is also too small, I think. So given this width that I have here, I got about 12-inch wide board through here. So what I'm thinking I'll probably end up doing is I could probably make the headboard and the footboard out of only 2 boards. I should be able to get, well, how long are these? I'll have to see on the length, but I'm hoping I can just cut them in half and have 8 feet. So they're 8 feet long, so I'm hoping I can cut them in half and have enough stock for a footboard and then a headboard, and then both the headboard and the footboard will be book matched to get the full size that I need. And while I'm here, I've got the moisture meter. You can take a look and see how dry the stuff is. Sitting around 9%, which is pretty good. 8, 7.9 over here, 6 down here, 8, 8.5. So one thing I can do is I have these blocks here. These are totally dry. These are offcuts from when I made the crib, and they've been sitting in the basement here. So this is my equilibrium standard for walnut. Same species, same environment. So in other words, when my stuff has been drying, matches the same moisture content as the stuff that's been in here for a long time, this is as dry as it's going to get. So this stuff's sitting at about 8.1-ish. That's pretty much close enough. And that's 7.1 there. So there's going to be a range throughout the board. And of course, there's going to be a difference because of the 2 different pieces of wood. There could be 2 different densities. They're from 2 different areas of the country. Who knows where they're from? Well, I know where they're from. They're both from here. But they're from 2 different trees, so density could be different. But plus or minus 1%, that's pretty good. Alright, so now I want to get the stock for the posts out, and this is the stuff I've been dreading the most. This is some of my other lumber storage. This is underneath the stairs in our laundry room, and I have all of my own personal collection in here. And the stuff I want to use for the posts is right here. It's a couple pieces of 12-quarter maple. You already saw me pull one of the boards from that tree out when I pulled the stock for the headboard and footboard. That was one of the boards on top. The other 2 are in the stack. So I have a lot of stuff in here. This is kind of a goofy room with this support post here, and I have that little room back here. So I don't really remember how I got a lot of stuff in here. It was either back into there and then out this way, or maybe sneak out through here through this other door here. But I used to stack and dry my lumber underneath the stairs here. It worked if you had a fan on it, because there's not a whole lot of airflow in here. But the other reason is it's just a pain in the butt to get wood in and out of here. So I did it a couple times with a few hundred board feet, and it was just ridiculously annoying. So that's when I moved the stack to the other area of the basement, a little more out in the open, which made it a lot easier to stack. But my wife loves me. I don't know why. So I think since I don't have to go that far down the stack, we've got maybe 100 board feet sitting on top of the stuff I need. I'm just going to probably just stack it on the floor in here, and hopefully that should be enough to still walk around and maneuver. Now over here I have all of my rough turn bowl blanks that are sitting on top of my stack of lumber, which I also have to remove. I've got some blocks for mallet heads, and I have all these bowls to move. So this is most of the rough turn bowls I have. I have some more out in the shop, but I really just enjoy green turning. It's just a lot of fun. And my whole thought process with this was, if I have a whole bunch of bowls, they're all rough turned, they can be finished turned at any point if I need to bring a gift somewhere or just feel like finished turning. But pretty rarely do I feel like finished turning, because turning dry lumber is a lot more dusty. It's a lot more hard on the tools. You don't get those big, giant shavings flying around. it's just not as much fun, at least to me. So this is probably as far as most of these things will ever get. I guess that's one way to get them out of the way. Hey, looking for this thing. Got my wife's sombrero. Why we have this, I have no idea. So it looks like I should have enough space to kind of pull the boards back that way to clear the staircase, and I can just pull them out towards the camera there out the door. And then I should be able to just kind of stack them in place right here on the floor. Oh, this is perfect too. So if you've been following along, you know I'm planning to build a tool cabinet this year. Well, this is the lumber right here, and I'm planning to build a tool cabinet out of some box elder that I've had for a long time. So I will be able to keep that out, so I don't have to worry about digging it out again when it's time to build a tool cabinet. That's exciting. That's gonna make a cool tool cabinet. Love all that color. All right, we got more cherry. I got some 8/4 cherry. I've had this stuff for a long time. Actually, I've had this cherry for like 5.5 years. This is from the first batch of lumber that I dried here in this house when we moved here. And this is my nicest walnut. The clearest, best looking color that I have. Still haven't used it. Got a whole bunch of sequential boards. As you can see, this is incredibly not fun. The few pieces of, I think this is birch. I think it was 6 years ago, 6 Christmases ago. This is what my in-laws got me as a Christmas gift. They got me like 100 board feet of whatever from a local sawmill that I then dried. I still have a bunch of it. This is the widest walnut board from that set. I think it's like 18 inches wide. I have no idea how it gets in here. Oh boy. So another thing I'm building this year is a highboy. And this maple is the same maple that I used as secondary wood when I built the secretary desk. So I think what I'm going to do is use this same maple for the highboy as well. So again, this is something else I can kind of put towards the top or set aside so I don't have to worry about pulling this stuff out again later. I think there should be enough material here for that whole highboy. It's going to have a lot more drawers than the secretary desk did. So it's going to require a lot more material. But I think there should be enough here. Oh good, we're almost there. 4 more rows to remove. Alright, some more 8/4 cherry. same batch as that other one. Of course, I'm a little tired now that I finally got down to these things and I see how big they are and how little fun they're going to be to pull out of here. Oh boy. So a little bit of story about this slabs I'm trying to dig out of here. I cut these over Christmas, I think 4 years ago. We were at my in-laws for Christmas that year, and one of my wife's childhood friends was in town, and he had purchased some land near where his parents lived. And he wanted to try some chainsaw milling, so I brought my chainsaw mill out there, and we cut up a red oak log, and I cut some 16-quarter red oak for him. And after we did that, he said I could pick out anything there in the woods and cut it up for myself. So I found this maple tree, and I wasn't really sure what kind of maple tree it was. It had its top snapped off, so I cut that down, and we cut up one of the logs into the 3 slabs that I have here. Now, I wasn't super careful about drawing them. They were pretty heavy, so I kind of put them at the top of my stack and didn't put any weight on top of them or anything. So they do have some warping to them. They have a pretty good amount of bowing and twisting in them, which I didn't really care about because I figured these would just become square stock anyway. And for leg stock or for turning stock or something, you don't need a whole lot of length. So a little bit of distortion in the wood isn't going to make that much of a difference. So a question I get a lot is, how do I come up with designs for furniture? And I'm not super creative. I don't go out into nature and like see things out there and make my stuff based off of that. Most of the things that I build are going to be derived from some piece of furniture that already exists, and then I might change that the design to suit my needs or to suit the lumber that I have. And this is no exception. So the inspiration for this bed came from this one here. This was a bed built by Craig Jentz, and this was displayed at the Northern Wood Show in 2016, which is a show that the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild puts on every year. So this is the bed that I saw there, and my wife likes the design as well, so I think that definitely helps. There's a few things that I specifically like about this. I like the curvature in the headboard and the footboard. These are actually a little more coopered, so that is basically that there's a bunch of boards there and they're all cut at an angle, so they're essentially staves, and that approximates a curve. So I like that aspect of it. I also like the large legs. The top of them are, I think they were exactly 4x4, so the overall size of the leg is probably around 5x5. I kind of like the shape of the leg, but I might do something different. I'm not really that sure yet. So that's kind of a starting point, and it gives me some inspiration of how I can design my own kind of bed. Now, this also is probably a double or a queen size bed. I'm making a twin size bed, so I need to scale this down to the dimensions that I need and all that stuff tof So for that, I'll go into SketchUp and do some rough drawing just to kind of get some dimensions. I don't really need to draw the whole thing out because I kind of know how things are going to come together. So I just need to kind of put things together to figure out the dimensions of most of the components. So since I'm making a bed, all of the dimensions for all the components of this whole bed project are going to be derived from the size of the mattress. So what I did here was I just drew out the size of a twin mattress to give me a good starting point. And from there I can actually use that length to figure out the length of the rails I'm going to need. So I can draw in a rail. Now the rails, I figured I want those to be a little bit longer than the mattress, and that'll give some room for the blankets to be tucked in on the top or the headboard and the footboard. And at some point I'll make it so that the whole thing is a little bit wider so the blankets can be tucked in alongside the rails. But again, for now, it's trying to get to some rough dimensions. Now from this point I can draw in a leg, and I can kind of play with some setbacks of how far the rail is going to be from the end of the leg. Here I just went with like a 1-inch offset just to kind of get some idea of scale and just appearance. Now at this point I really don't know how long I want the posts to be or how tall I want them to be, so I'm just kind of drawing them in there for now at some arbitrary length. One thing I can do here while I'm looking at this is I can decide or kind of look at it and see how tall the rail should be in comparison to the leg. This is an 8-inch tall rail, and it might be a little bit tall. Maybe a 6-inch might be a little bit better. Something I can play with as I look at the wood, especially if I have something that's going to work really well. It's only 6 inches wide as opposed to something that's 8 inches wide. I might just go to a 6-inch wide thing wide rail just because it's the wood I want to use. It's not important at this point, but I can kind of figure out how high I want the bed to be off of the ground. This is for my son. He's only a year and a half old, so he needs to be able to actually get up into the bed. And I don't really feel like making steps or something, but I don't want to make it too low that it's kind of weird looking in the future. So details like that aren't that important at this point right now, since I'm really just trying to get to some main dimensions so I can get the wood figured out. So from there, I can kind of look towards the headboard and the footboard. I already decided that the headboard and the footboard would be pretty much the same thing, so I'm just going to draw in the headboard. So before I even pulled the lumber, I knew that the boards I'm going to be dealing with are going to be about 12 inches wide. So that's what I drew in here. I just drew a 12-inch wide board that's about 1.5 inches thick, and I just kind of drew that in there flat up against the legs. And then I figured, well, we can put another board next to it. So this is tipped back at 10 degrees, and I might consider tipping back this bottom one as well, so that's at an angle to the front edge of the post. That might make it a little more comfortable, a little more interesting. Now the footboard, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I probably want it to be a little bit shorter, so what I'll do there is most likely just start the footboard lower on the post than the headboard, so that it ends up a little bit shorter. So one thing I'm still thinking about here, again, is the length of that post. I'm not sure if I want it to be the same size or the same height as the headboard, or shorter than it, or taller than it, but I have some time to kind of think about that. And that just gives me some insight on the size of everything needs to be, so I can start roughing out the parts. I just personally prefer to work with the wood itself and kind of let the wood decide what it wants to do as far as dimensions go, and just use the computer model as a basic plan just to get me started in breaking this stuff down. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm kind of changing my mind on a few things just by looking at the wood. So for instance, here on the headboard, I'm planning on using the crotch section of the slabs, and then the footboard will be made from the bottom section of that without the crotch in there. So I'm thinking it might be kind of cool to do a live edge for the top of the headboard. So along the top, there's this live edge there, and then this actually stays into the board, or into the headboard, with this kind of jet up in the air thing. So that kind of goes back to the post length. Do I want the post to end here? Do I want it to go all the way to the top here? So the post would be all the way at the top of one side, and then the post would be taller than the headboard on the other side of the headboard. If they're the same height, the post would be up here, and there'd be some dead space beneath it. I'm kind of thinking maybe I want the post to come to this point on the headboard, and this just sticks out freely in the air. That's just something to consider at this point, but I think I'm strongly leaning towards evolving this bed into having more live edge components. Now, something else I'm thinking about doing is leaving the bottom edge of the rails as a live edge. I'm thinking about using this board here for at least one of the rails. I think that might be a cool look, and it might tie in nicely to the headboard. The nice thing about leaving it live edge is if I don't like the look of it, I can just cut it off and square it up and get rid of it. So it's kind of nice in that sense that I can build it with the live edge. If I don't like it, I can always change my mind, and it's not going to be detrimental at all. So the other thing I'm doing here that I'm kind of deviating from the bed that Craig made is I'm using walnut for the rails as well as the headboard, and maple for the footboard. Now, one thing that definitely varies from Craig's design to my design is that Craig didn't use any sapwood in the headboard or the footboard where the walnut is. I am planning to. I think the sapwood in the walnut is going to tie in really nicely to the light color in the maple. It's actually going to blend together pretty well because the sapwood is going to be pretty much the same color as the maple. So that could be a pretty cool tie-in, and I think it's going to be a nice way to integrate that sapwood into the project really elegantly. This is my favorite part of any project, is picking out the boards, really letting the boards and the grain and the figure kind of dictate where they end up in the project. It's just a lot of fun. There's a little bit of artistry to it. I really enjoy it. So looking forward to the uncertainty ahead, because I still don't really know exactly what this is going to look like, but this is the way I like to build, and I really do enjoy that building process. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the bed project, anything in the shop or whatever, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.